Anthony Martial with 2 goals in Manchester United's 2-2 draw against Chelsea at the weekend. His contract is up at the end of this season. There is the potential to extend it for an extra season, Emma, but he's rejected the first round of talks, the first contract offered to him by Manchester United.
Well, I don't think there's anything unusual in that, is there, for a footballer to reject a first round of contracts? But ultimately, it's about what Martial wants. I mean, everybody knows he's a top talent that's lacked the opportunity on a regular basis, and hopefully he gets that time now, because I think he's what Manchester United need. He's somebody that's willing to take the responsibility, I think, at times when the team needs it. He brings that attacking qualities that everybody knows he's got, but I think he's producing it in the last few games. It's just a question of whether his heart is in Manchester and whether he wants to continue his career there, because I think Martial can play at most clubs in the world. I think he's got all the qualities, you know, to deliver, and I think this is just the beginning of a long, protracted contract negotiation.
If he is that good, why isn't he playing more under Jose Mourinho?
Well, I always think when we have these conversations, my first thought is always, well, we don't know what he's like on the training pitch, day in, day out, and, you know, they know what he's like in that environment. So my first question would be, is he doing it day in, day out? And if he's producing that consistency now, Mourinho, you know, obviously is trusting him in more games, and he's producing what the manager's asking. And perhaps with some players that does take a little bit of time. You know, maybe they don't cope particularly well with having to produce that expectation day in. Like, people always assume they're professionals, they do it every day, they do it to the highest level, but it's not always as simple as that. And I think for Martial, for whatever reasons, perhaps Man United struggling in some of their players afforded the opportunity to him, but he's taking it.
Yeah, that's I mean, the thing is, he's only just sort of taking it now, isn't he? He's had numerous occasions, numerous opportunities to come in and perform, and at least...
But has he had a run? Has he had a long enough run?
You know what it's been about him, I think, a lot of the time, is more about body language. And I know people say, like, Mesut Ozil is the biggest criticism he always has directed him, body language, and he says, that's just me. And I think that just still has a massive part to play. You know, as a manager, if you see a player just sort of like moping about, loses the ball, just stands there, that plays a massive part on confidence, morale, the stadium. And I think Anthony Martial at times had let himself down. The last couple of weeks, he's been a different person. You know, the second half against Newcastle, I thought he was excellent. I thought he was excellent at Chelsea. I mean, that second goal at Chelsea was I mean, his touch was brilliant. The finish was equally brilliant. And he shows he's got that. We've seen it in glimpses in the past.
Well, to be fair, under Mourinho, we've only had a chance to see it in glimpses from Anthony Martial. But even though he's played less frequently under Mourinho than he has under Van Gaal, statistically, he's more effective. He scores more often, he assists more often.
I agree with Emma, though. It's about what happens behind the closed doors, what happens on the training field every day, his application, his body language, his attitude. And I've got no doubt whatsoever that Jose Mourinho hasn't been happy with that. That's why he's not picked him every week. If the guy's out there working his socks off every day, if he's got the right application, showing the right application, he's delivering on the training field, he is showing the willingness to get better, take on the information, there's no doubt whatsoever that he'd be playing every week. He'd be one of the first players on the team sheet. And I think maybe the penny's only dropped now. Maybe it's got the fact that he's coming down, his contract is winding down. That's why he's decided, you know what, I need to actually up myself.
But it's also playing sometimes, I think, in a position that the team needs you to do. I mean, sometimes I feel with him and Rashford, they all want to be the number 9 at United, and he's had to adjust to playing into more of the wider spaces, where I think he does thrive when he gets down the side of the box and he gets into good 1v1 moments. You don't always know what motivates a player in and around contract negotiations, and often it is about, you know, securing the best opportunity. But perhaps for Martial, the penny has dropped. You know, he is getting the opportunities and recognising that he has to take that. He's responsible for that. And, you know, now might be that time he does that. Whether he sustains that, again, we haven't had a period where we've watched Martial. In glimpses, he's shown his qualities. Has he done it enough? There's two sides to that. Perhaps he hasn't been given long enough, or he's had a long enough piece of string for that to happen. And once again, I'll always say it, you have to do it on a training pitch, day in, day out.
And I think his opportunity now, under the circumstances, under Alexis Sanchez, you know, struggling to find the top form that we'd seen him at Arsenal, and supposedly being injured at the moment, Anthony Martial has an unbelievable opportunity to really cement his position in that team, and also to show Manchester United fans, the club, that he's rightfully in that team every week and he can deliver at a level they're expecting him to, showing, especially over the last couple of weeks, deliver that time and time again.
This idea that you're looking for what a player does in training, if they deliver, surely all players train differently into different levels of intensity. If they're delivering when you actually do play them, how much does it matter what they're giving on the training ground?
It's consistency that you have to look for. So if you've got a player and you're challenging them with body language, for example, and they have a setback in training or a disappointment in training, you look for that reaction. If they can't cope with that there, how are they going to cope with that in front of 60,000 people? And sometimes that takes a little bit of work, sometimes senior players just helping and supporting with that. And I always think of the subject around body language. It's always a tough one to read. But I think over time you have to educate players that it's about doing things for the team. And sometimes it can come off in a certain way that suggests you're not as interested in doing certain things, which isn't always the case. I think for Martial, he requires, I think, the right sort of care and attention and love from his manager. And some might argue if he played under Klopp, would we be seeing something different? I think for Mourinho, everybody knows he demands a great deal from players in the training environment. And I think Luke Shaw's a good example for Martial. He's a player who's come through a really torrid time under Mourinho, signed a new contract, producing performances. And while players don't want to accept the criticism, there is a degree of truth in it. And you have to reflect and see that. And perhaps for Martial, maybe as he's maturing, he's recognising that.
Yeah, there's the football side and the business side, though, for Manchester United. Do they have to... They made him the world's most expensive teenager. Do they have to protect that investment and weigh up whether or not he's worth more to them if they sell him on with a nice new contract, or whether or not he's worth paying to keep at the club?
Well, I think there's no doubting his ability. We've all said that he has that ability. It's about delivering it week in, week out. And I think what he's shown in the last couple of weeks, does that justify signing him on a longer-term contract? That's always a massive, big debate. And I think, again, you know, the best person to make that call on it is someone like Jose Mourinho, who works with him day in, day out. And back to like what Emma was saying about training every day and the application that you put in and body language on the training field, I don't think it's necessarily about what sort of level of performance, because everyone has bad days, has off days. You may even have a couple of bad days, but it's more about your application. It's about your mental approach each day. So if you're doing the right things, you're trying to do the right things, there's a leeway. You know, you understand that it doesn't always work out quite well at training. That's what training's there for. But as long as you're putting the right kind of application towards it, that's what matters the most. And I think with Anthony Martial, he obviously has been putting more application, more effort into his training. He's obviously, you know, looked at himself in the mirror and going, you know what, I need to step up, because his performances are showing that. He looks more confident, he just looks sharper, he looks hungrier. And I think that's a great indication. And Luke Shaw, like we mentioned, is the best example.
But that doesn't happen accidentally. That is what's going on at the training ground. Yes. Luke Shaw's looked at himself and says, I need to get fitter. Perhaps the same thing has happened with Martial. The penny drops sometimes, and it's all about the support around that. And he's got that right now. And with a run of form, perhaps he could be a difference maker.
Well, Luke Shaw has shown that the buck stops with him. He's changed it around. He's been told what he needs to improve upon, and he's done it. And he's become stronger, better, and he's performed more regularly, consistently at a level, because you will get a chance. Anthony Martial's got another chance now. So he's now delivering, and he just needs to get better and better, because Jose Mourinho will demand. And Luke Shaw signed a new contract. It's not a case now he'll just sit back and relax, because if he does, he'll receive the brunt from Jose Mourinho, because he'll be demanding every time. And the same will be with Anthony Martial and every other player in that squad.